guys, welcome to this build video for Elder Scrolls Online. This build is for nightblade. This build is for people who are doing Veteran Maelstrom Arena. If you're going for loot grinding to get the Maelstrom weapons at the end, looking for easy clears if it's your first time. If you're going for Flawless, this is amazing for that as well. I just got my Flawless today on nightblade with this build. And I'm a nightblade noob. I've been kind of new to this class for a couple of weeks now. I didn't get Flawless on my first go. I've had a few tries and CP allocation, blah 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 blah, adjusting the skills and so on, but this build is very defensive and very strong. You can solo most veteran dungeons, not all, there are some exceptions, but the majority you can do by yourself if you play very defensively. So this build uses Necropotence, which most Sorks usually use because they have a pet which activates the 5-piece. But we do have a pet called Shade on nightblade. It's kind of a joke skill. It's not really used in any PVE situations because the damage is really bad. And for PvP, I don't really presume people use this. If you can't tell the difference between a Shade pet and an active player, then there's something wrong. So the skill is really undervalued and doesn't really have much use in any situation, but the situations we're using it for, we're taking full advantage of the minor maim that it can apply, and the fact that it will count as an active pet for Necropotence. So our gear we're using is 5-piece Necropotence, which gives you Magicka all the way through, and the 5-piece, when you have a pet active, your max Magicka is increased by roughly 4k. This is all enchanted with Magicka and it's all divines. For our jewellery we're using Moon Dancer. You can use Aether here as well, it's fine, but Moon Dancer gives max Magicka, so that's why we're using it, because we're trying to push the max Magicka as much as we can for this build. The main reason why we're using any of these trial sets is for the Minor Slayer passive, which increases your damage done to dungeon and trial monsters by 5%. This is enchanted with spell damage enchants. For a monster set, it doesn't really matter too much. I'm using Grofdar. You could use something else like Valken or something that's going to benefit you, but go for what you prefer here. For the staffs, we don't need any Maelstrom staffs. We're just using 2 crafted staffs, Lightning for AoE front bar and Inferno for single target back bar. Both sharpened, both with spell damage and chance. For skills, on our back bar we have Merciless Resolve, which increases our damage done by 8% for 20 seconds. And while active, hitting enemy of light attacks changes the ability into a quick burst damage for sort of 18k. And we're going to be light attacking a lot because we're going to be light attack weaving our main spam bull. Siphoning attacks, while you're causing light or heavy attack damage or any other damage really, you kind of regain resources, which is good if you're struggling with resources. Shade is our pet, which I will go over soon. We are using Refreshing Path for some small heals and the Major Expedition, and it's also a kind of small damage over time. Our main single target spammable for the back bar is Crushing Shock. You can use Force Pulse here for more damage. The reason I've gone for Crushing Shock is in round 8 and 9 of Maelstrom Arena there's some enemies, I think we know which ones I'm talking about, that pop their staffs up in the air and start shooting these ridiculously powerful fireballs or magic things and stuff. And it's just nice, especially if you're like a half a mile away or something, to kind of just pop Crushing Shock to interrupt them. It can save you in a lot of situations. If you're confident enough to deal with them situations without it, change to Force Pulse for the extra damage. For the ultimate we're using Fiery Rage, which is a big AoE ultimate, it's very strong. For the front bar, which is AoE, because we're using a lightning staff, we're using Sap Essence, which deals magic damage and heals you, plus 20% extra for each enemy hit. If an enemy is hit, you gain Major Sorcery, which increases your spell damage by 20% for 20 seconds. If you're using spell power pots, by all means take this ability out and use something else. If you want to save your potions, this is a decent ability to use. If you're surrounded in Maelstrom and you pop this a couple of times and then dodge roll out, most of the enemies will die. You'll get some healing, and you'll get your spell damage buff. So this could be quite handy in a lot of situations in Maelstrom, especially in AoE situations where you allow yourself to be surrounded on purpose to kind of lightning staff attack AoE, like with the heavy attack, and you got your blockade down and you pop that, everything will die. We've got Inner Light. This was double barred for the max magicka increased by 5%, and the spell critical buff. The reason I haven't double barred it is because I wanted siphoning attacks in its place on the back bar. But you could double bar this if you wanted to. We got the shield, which I'll explain in a minute. This is also good for sustain. If you're taking spell damage, you're restoring magicka. It's a strong shield as well. We're using Blockade of Storms. We're not going the off balance route because with Nightblade I found enemies don't get concussed enough. So for the 4%, for the 4 seconds of extra 10% damage, it wasn't worth it. We're using Swallowed Soul on the front bar as our main spammable, which gives you healing, and this can crit quite hard as well. And you also gain Minor Vitality, increasing your healing received by 8%. And for our ultimate, we're using Soul Harvest, which is quite good against bosses when they're at low health and sort of elite mobs and stuff. While slotted, you gain ultimate 10 ultimate when you kill something, which is, it just means your ultimate's constantly flooding in because you're always killing things. The other reason we're using this is because of the passive. With an assassination ability slotted, you gain 10% crit damage. So on this bar we got extra crit damage. So a way that this build is played defensively is we're going to be casting our Shade ability, which on the 5-piece of Necropotence, while you have a pet active, your max magicka is increased by roughly 4k. Unlike a Sork's pet, which is always active and needs to be double barred, this isn't always active. This is every 20 seconds you will need to recast this. But it only needs to be slotted on one bar for your shades to be out. So you can cast this and then bar swap, and you're going to have the max magicka increase from the 5-piece of Necropotence. And unlike a Sork's pet, which can be killed, the shades can't be killed. But again, you have to recast it. So there's a weird balance there. So on our front bar, where our shield is, we have roughly 47k max magicka, which gives us a shield of about 20k, which is really strong. It's almost as strong as Hardened Ward for a Sork. Most Sorks that I know run Hardened Ward for about 20k, 21k, with the right build 22, 23k. And their Harness Magicka is about sort of 16, 17k. Our Harness Magicka is already 20k, and this is because of our high max magicka, and it's also because we've got quite a few points into the CP tree Bastion, which increases our shield strength. But it's mostly because of our max magicka. So the other use of Shade is each damage attack from the Shade inflicts the enemy with minor maim, reducing their damage done by 15% for 4 seconds, and around about 4 seconds or 5 seconds the Shade will hit again. So minor maim, as long as the enemy isn't chasing you all over Maelstrom Arena, as long as the Shade's able to hit the enemy, minor maim will be up 100% of the time on whichever enemy you cast this ability on. So let's say there's different enemies. There's a tough enemy over here. You would cast Shade and make sure you know he's not moving, you're nearby. And with the Shade active, our max magicka is increased to roughly 52k, which increases our shield strength to roughly 22k, which is just crazy. For Harness Magicka, 22k, that's such a strong shield. And again, when the shades disappear, our Max Magicka is going to go... Let me just bar swap again. See, our Max Magicka's gone back down, so you will need to recast this ability. But keeping the enemy still, I mean, look at the attacks of the Shade, it's every second or so, so minor maim is up 100% of the time, which is 15% less damage. So say it's on like a Daedroth round 9, or some kind of tough enemy, even a boss, you can cast this and that's 15% less damage to you. Bar swap, 22k shield. There's a lot of survivability in this build, and with the increased Max Magicka, we're hitting harder with all of our abilities, and so on. In the champion point tree, because we can apply minor maim, which gives us 15% less damage on whatever we cast it on, we're able to take some points out of Hardy, which is mainly sort of physical poison damage and stuff. We've still got elemental defender quite high, but we're able to pump loads of points into Bastion, which increases our shield strength. And the way that this build is played offensively is, as soon as we come into a situation, we have our main 3 skills on our back bar. Merciless Resolve, which is 20 seconds, Siphoning, which is 15, Shades, which is 20, and our dots, which are about, okay, so sort of 10 seconds, 8 seconds. So we come into a situation, we put our Siphoning and our Merciless Resolve up, and we pop Shade, and then Refreshing Path bar swap, put our AoE down, and then you have a choice. At this point, you have a choice of whether you want to spam single target spam Swallowed Soul, which with our shades active, okay, hits for roughly 9,000, or Crushing Shock, which hits for roughly 9,000. Yeah, roughly 9,000. So with AoE, if you're in an AoE situation, there's lots of mobs around, you want to stay on your lightning staff bar. And the reason why is because in our destruction staff passives, Flame Staff increases your damage done with single target abilities by 8%. Lightning Staff increases your damage done with area of effect abilities by 8%. So our front bars are AoE because we've got Lightning Blockade. We have the Lightning Heavy Attack, which affects multiple enemies. And this is increased damage by 8% for this AoE kind of staff. And we have our Sap Essence, which is AoE. And if we're in a risky situation, you can pop your shield and back out and start getting some healing back from Swallowed Soul. When you are in a situation where it's one enemy, a strong enemy, could be a boss or whatever, you want to, as long as all of your dots and stuff are up, you switch to your back bar, which is our Flame Staff, for the 8% increased single target damage, and we're going to be light weaving Crushing Shock, which overall does more damage than light weaving Swallowed Soul. It all depends on whether you want the healing from Swallowed Soul or you just want to go full damage, but keep in mind on this bar there's no shield. You want to switch to AoE bar for that, for the shield. Another thing about Merciless Resolve being up on your single target back bar is when we're light attack weaving Force Pulse, with 4 light attacks it procs the Assassin's Will and we can pop it. So with Merciless Resolve up, and you're going to be light attack weaving against bosses, things like that, and we can pop that, cast it again, and so on. So it's a good way to keep up the damage on that ability. And if you can find better places to put the skills, which suit your playstyle more, go for that. This is what I found was more comfortable for me, and that's essentially really it. So we're going to showcase some of the defensive play of mouse this build in Dragonstar. This is only on normal, but it will give you an example of how this is played defensively. So we want to keep up Merciless Resolve, siphoning attacks, and Shade as much as we can, and then cast our shield when Shade is active. And that, you can see that's how strong Sap Essence is you can just suck health from these guys, and you're getting major sorcery and just nuking them down. We're going to put our lightning thing down, and we're just going to single target him. Dodge roll out of that, single target this guy over here, and now we're going to switch to AoE and just nuke these guys down. Swallowed Soul, and they're dead. Guys coming in. Make sure Merciless Resolve up. We failed to block that. So we're going to put Shade down, put our shield up, and go back to AoE because they're surrounding us now. One guy on his own, we're going to light weave Swallowed Soul, and he's dead. Behind us is a couple of enemies. We're going to use Sap Essence, get some heals, and just kill them. And they're dead. So with this build, there's a button for every situation. Even on your single target bar, you know, you can cast your Shade, you can put one AoE down with some heals and dodge roll. So the boss is out, we're gonna put I was too busy talking, we're gonna put our abilities up, our buffs, get the shades out, put our AoEs down, and we're gonna try and take this first guy's health down a bit. We're gonna focus on one boss at a time, miss the stun like an idiot. Okay, our dots are down, we're just gonna put them back down. We're gonna reapply our buffs. And reapply our shields before we get absolutely smashed. Okay, we've got a lot of AoE people here, so we're going to try and use Sap Essence. If I can get up, we're going to shield, and we are getting wiped, so let's get some Swallowed Souls on some people. Let's get healing off all of them. Keep our shield up. Okay, so we're safe again. Let's keep our shades out. Oh man, I need to really stop getting knocked down like this. We should have an ultimate. Let's get our shades back up and our shield back on. Go back to our AoE bar. Our ultimate combined with Sap Essence is just nuking everything, and the boss is done. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the build video. If you're using this build, I wish you best of luck on whatever you're trying to achieve. Be it VMA, going for a flawless, group dungeons, whatever it is. If you're going for a flawless, don't give up. Just keep persevering. This build will bring you a flawless. It may take a few days. It took me a couple of days. And I'm a complete noob to nightblade. So if I can do it, you can do it. Again, thanks for watching. Bye.